So welcome to today's conversation, bringing awareness and compassion to perfectionism. This is a conversation between Deborah Hurwitz, founder and CEO of Cobalt Coaching, and Carla Camou, master trainer at NLP Marin. So I'm LiYana Silver. I'm also a graduate of NLP Marin, and I'll be emceeing today's conversation. A little bit about me. I got my certification as a master transformational NLP practitioner around 2010. So it's been a minute. And I've applied that training also to my work with clients in my private practice as a transformational coach for women. Definitely applied it to my life and my parenting, and also in writing my first book called Feminine Genius. I also apply the tools and perspectives of transformational NLP to messaging and marketing here at NLP Marin and for our graduates. So I am delighted to introduce to you Deborah Hurwitz. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Maybe she'll add a little bit. Using her signature PACT, P-A-C-T system, Deborah Hurwitz helps ambitious professionals to break through the paralysis of perfectionism and procrastination so that they complete the projects and goals that matter most to them. Deborah is a composer, conductor, and recording artist whose internationally acclaimed projects include Cirque du Soleil, Cyndi Lauper, and the Broadway smash hit Jersey Boys. She has written, arranged, and produced music for television shows ranging from Sesame Street to CNN Tonight. She has released 2 independent CDs as singer-songwriter Deborah Marlowe, and she's performed on The Tonight Show, the Tony Awards, and twice at the White House. In both a career as an artist and online entrepreneur, Deborah has mastered the art of, I love this, single tasking, eliminating doubts and distractions to achieve remarkable industry successes, while honoring her creative self-expression and personal integrity. She now helps a tribe of 16,000 strong to do the same through her online shows and mission accomplished coaching programs.
Yay!
Yes. Carla.
We're up to about 22,000 now. I got to update that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Update. Yeah. Anything you want to add?
I mean, it's a 35-year career in show business and a pretty brand new, relatively speaking, 5-year-old coaching business. So there are lots of details, but that's a good frame. That's a good place to start.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll probably get more of the details as we go too. And then here we have, I think the theme is blue today. We also have Carla Camou, master trainer here at NLP Marin. Carla has been involved in NLP for over 30 years. Maybe this needs some updating too, but that's the number we got right now, 35 maybe. Okay. She has worked with hundreds.
If you go too far, I am going to look a lot older. So,
We're going to be asking for your self-care tips in a minute. She has worked with hundreds of students and clients across the globe who are wanting personal change and or wanting to facilitate change in the lives of others. At NLP Marin, Carla trains students and training assistants, creating a special space for accelerated, joyful learning. The premise for Carla's work is a deep respect for the individual's experience and a full embracing of the strength they already have to generate new experiences. The result is an elegant change that enriches the client's previous journey called life, at work, at home, in relation to others, and in all matters of the heart. Carla also works alongside Carl Buchheit in continually refining and evolving the body of work known as transformational NLP. As a training designer, she has the profound ability to make skills that seem magical to most accessible to the many. Carla also has her private practice in Seattle, Washington, where she holds private consultations, group training, and constellations. So, bringing awareness and compassion to perfectionism. Yes. Well, I am very excited for this conversation. I would self-identify as being recovering from perfectionism. So can we start off with you, Deborah? What is your life and work life these days as you have incorporated transformational NLP?
Totally big question. So let's see. So I call myself now a productivity coach for perfectionists. And it came out of a sort of 5 to 7 year reinvention process where the Cirque du Soleil show that I did that was supposed to be this decade-long, take me to LA, work with all the great film composers, life-changing gig, crashed and burned very soon after I moved to LA and changed my life and left my cushy Jersey Boys, Broadway, and New York City existence. Not that New York City existence is ever really cushy, but insofar as it could be as a musician, I had it about as cushy as it could get. And I was kind of like dumped unceremoniously out on my butt and had kind of a combination of a midlife crisis, a marriage crisis, a career crisis all at once, and went deep into one of the very few times in my life that I've been really depressed. And I actually found you, LiYana, out of that, reaching for help with just feeling okay in my own skin, because it had gotten to the point where I didn't know how to be my age. I didn't know how to have my particular face, body, circumstances. It's just everything felt wrong and off and scary and awful. I needed a different way to make money. I needed a different way. I just needed out of all of the structures that I had been inside of. I was burned out on everything. I hated everybody. I just needed something new. And I did your women's embodiment experience, which was fantastic. You introduced me to Carla. This was all in 2015. And Carla and I, will get to this a little bit later, but Carla and I had a conversation, which now I know was a parts auditorium, one of the NLP tools. But at the time was just this magical space whereby she was able to kind of broker an agreement between these different yelling voices in my head, all voices that I correspond to, perfectionism, and ways it has to be and ways it can't be, and the right way and the wrong way, and like all the ways that our brains are yelling at us, primarily left hemisphere stuff. And where I had been waking up at a particular time in the middle of the night and not able to go back to sleep for weeks on end, which was a very unusual problem for me. I have always been a very good sleeper my whole life, so this was really weird and awful. This one session with her fixed it. Like literally the next day I had the stirrings and some little voice went, time to go back to sleep now. And I went back to sleep. It was all 10 seconds. And I was like, oh, what is this voodoo? Like, I must know more. And that brought me to another series of types of work that ultimately led to me learning more about online marketing. I was really starting from scratch with building a new life. And mostly starting from scratch in terms of building a new life in LA, a new career, a new profession, and with a program that I did to learn how to basically like build an email list and figure something out as a way to serve strangers and make money. I created a summit, kind of like what we're doing right now, an online series, interview series called Productivity for Perfectionists: How to Stop Procrastinating, Silence the Inner Critic, and Get It Done in 20 minutes a day. And for me, that was all about bringing all the different layers of expertise that I had in my life, working in cutthroat competitive industries, working on impossible timelines. I mean, anybody in TV production or record production or theater production knows impossible timelines, impossible levels of moving parts and people and egos. But I have a lot of experience with that. And I knew what I was doing with regard to that. I know how to get shit done. And I completely identify as a perfectionist. I completely identify with the paralysis of procrastination, not doing the work that really matters to me, doing busy work, working very hard to make my life look good on the outside while I felt shittier and emptier by the day on the inside. And I wanted to solve that problem for myself while I figured out how to make much money, do something that I loved, and just kind of enjoy getting up in the morning. And that was like a tall order, but that's what I was committed to. And it turns out that I'm an excellent coach. It turns out that that weaving these different threads together and ultimately getting the NLP certification that I went back for. So I'm also master practitioner of transformational neurolinguistic programming. Love that title. It's like so woo. So I brought that into my business, along with a number of other modalities, including Your Feminine Genius, LiYana, which is brilliant and wonderful for women and wonderful for perfectionism in general. And now I do these group programs and I do these shows, and I'm just out there in the world helping perfectionists get unstuck on what actually matters to them. And it is truly a life's calling in ways that I could never have predicted. And part of getting there was actually being able to let go of the perfectionism long enough to find shit out that I wouldn't otherwise have had the wherewithal to explore, because I was really like freedom, lifestyle, flexible entrepreneurial gig. I'm learning how to be a CEO and grow a team and a business that runs without me. I'm refining my daily activities to be doing more and more of what I love and less of what I don't. So I'm an artist, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, and I've got teams taking care of a lot of the stuff that I don't want to do. I'm a writer, and I'm just ever refining my life so that I have opportunities for happiness and creation and helping other people do the same.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I want to get into perfectionism, since it's something you really have reckoned with and know intimately. Carla, I'm wondering if you will just share with those who are listening and watching who don't know probably what parts work is. I mean, it's out there, but Deborah mentioned this. Yeah, will you share with us a bit?
Yeah, there's a lot of different modalities that use parts work. NLP uses it in a really different way, and some unique elements to it. But it is, if you, most of us are familiar with saying, like, part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that. In some modalities, that those are kind of approached as like different personalities within us. What they are is they are elements of us that are, when we don't hold it as personalities, but they're like pockets of criteria. And so when we're saying part of me like wants to go to the movies and part of me wants to stay home, there's some criteria for going to the movie and whatever that's going to bring to us, and there's some criteria for staying home. And we get into disagreements with ourselves, and there's a whole thing about being your authentic self or doing it exactly the way you want to do it, when reality is that's a really hard thing to do, because there's so many different elements of your experience where we're rarely 100% in on anything. So parts work is a lot about getting in and working with and understanding what that criteria is, and finding the things that align with all of the criteria in us and not just one aspect of the criteria with us. And it's, in NLP, the parts work is all about understanding, about presupposing that all of that criteria is something that is positive, and it often doesn't feel positive when we start. And we have students who will argue with this for a little while, and that's okay. It's until you get into the work, it's hard to really be able to feel the depth of that positive intention. But it's about being able to start finding the alignment that's available inside. And like, Deborah was talking about the piece we did with her. There was some criteria for being awake at night that fulfilled, that there were some other ways to fulfill that, and finding the negotiation within so that nothing in us loses. And that's the real key. There's a lot of the inner parts work in the world has to do with sort of convincing. And in NLP, we're not convincing, we are understanding until we get to a point where there is a way to find a natural agreement. And any good negotiation does this. It keeps kind of chunking up until you find the ways that the two sides can align and what can be aligned on. And so it's all about aligning self with self.
I love this distinction of not convincing, because, and as I was working from what I was doing with NLP into my business, like, how was I bringing this modality into the services I was providing? Because I am a coach and I'm also like a consultant and collaborator, right? Like sometimes I do absolutely tell my clients what the fuck to do. Excuse me, are we using profanity or are we not? Like
apparently we are. Yeah.
Like sometimes I will, like give an opinion or say, do this, or give steps to take, right? Like that sort of thing. But I am always mindful of that distinction, because especially with a perfectionist, or what I put as, like you said, what did you say, the what of criteria, the pocket of criteria, it's so good, right? It's like perfectionist is not a clinical definition and a psychological term, right? But it's like a big basket of criteria, right? And it's getting it right. And it's this, the war, LiYana, you said this to me at one point, when you're at war with yourself and you win, who loses, right? It's that war of that the one that needs this and the one that needs this. And the idea that we can find a way to meet those needs without firing any of the parts that are keeping us breathing, and without there being like the fear of, if I don't do this, then the world's going to come down. And in the case of the work that Carla and I did, right, the one that was keeping me up was what we called my get shit done girl, who's still very present, right? And get shit done girl was like really nervous about paying bills at 3:30 in the morning at that particular time in my life. And it was like, there was financial stuff, there was emotional stuff, there was a lot going on, there was a ton of fear and anxiety. And get shit done girl was trying to like, just like exert some sort of control where there was really no control to be had at all, you know, but the need to exert the control, the need to feel safe was showing up in that particular way. And so to be able to do the work of not telling get shit done girl, this is not the time to pay bills. This is, you can't do anything about this right now. Why are you trying? You don't actually have control over any of this stuff. Stop trying, right? Like the sort of ways that we talk to ourselves as perfectionists, the ways that we talk to ourselves, trying to say the right thing, trying to do the right thing, trying to get it right, and trying to make ourselves believe and feel what makes sense when this has nothing to do with anything making sense on the inside, right? It's not linear or logical. And so the way that Carla was so skillful about that, and what I aim to emulate in my own work on this stuff, is to really honor and respect what the IPO, the intended positive outcome, or the intended positive intent of that piece is, that's making so much noise, that's insisting so hard, that's demanding so much. And to say, you get to have that need met, whatever that need is. Like, we're gonna make sure that need gets met. And here's a way that you can get some more help with that. Right? And to bring in those other parts. So I call it bringing the players to the table, right? Bringing the players to the table. Like, what game are we playing here? How can we all win? And so, you know, that was really important to have that distinction of, I'm not here to convince, I'm not here to dismiss or judge, right? All parts are welcome. All parts have an intended positivity to them.
Beautiful. I will say, I believe that the lineage, or the etymology, or actually the lineage of that quote, which is very powerful.
Yeah.
When you're at war with yourself and you win, who loses? I think Carla may have said it first to Carl, and then Carl said it in class. So just want to attribute it to Carl and everybody else.
I have to be honest, I'm not sure. It might have been Carl who said it first. But it might have been Jonathan. It might have been somebody, you know, who, right? But it's part of what we say in NLP, and just to notice, it's like, you know, so what is the real outcome of, if, you know, if you win or if you lose,
right?
You know, and how do we set it up so that it's a working together? And it's when we're at odds with ourselves, when we're doing this kind of war with ourselves, all aspects of us are trying to get a little bit of a win.
Mm-hmm.
But that win comes at a cost to all the rest of us.
Doesn't it?
And when you find a way for things to begin to work together, all aspects win and are supported in the win. And so there's also not a need to overcome the feeling of a loss. And perfectionism is often trying to get some, like, there is the liking things to be exactly perfect, like it's just a particular way, but what it means to have it be perfect is so important, to be able to understand and to be able to notice that that's a different need than the actual product that you're putting out or the behavior that you're putting out. But there is something that perfection fulfills inside someone.
Right. And
oftentimes the way that it's truly fulfilled is not the way that we're going about reaching for it.
That is so gently put. I'm so much less gentle when I'm talking to people. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm sorry, LiYana, you're moderating, but I'm like just having the chat.
I don't want to interrupt you. You're probably going to this, but what do you think, this for both of you, are the core needs or desires that fund and drive perfectionism, and what are the particular fears? And it may be different for every person, but there may be some commonalities.
Yeah. Carla, do you want to follow up on what you were saying with that
No,
answer?
no, go ahead. Because
Yeah. So yeah, it almost always, I boil it down to kind of two categories, and for what the perfection means, like why, and the favorite NLP question, what will having that do for you, right? Like, why does that matter? Why is that important? And it's important to have it be perfect because as long as it's perfect, I'm safe. I will keep breathing. I'm alive. I did it right. And I've earned my right to exist on the planet, right? And I have spent my entire life earning my right to exist, and working through the perfectionism and breaking the patterns of perfectionism have involved trying on for size, not actually getting there, but at least trying on for size. What if I actually have a right to exist without earning it? And to pull that apart. But anyway, so there's I've earned my right to exist. It's okay for me to breathe, right? I did what I needed to do. I got it right. And then the other big category is belonging, right? I am safe in the tribe. People will like me. I will get what I need from other people or with other people, my agenda in the world, my material needs, all that stuff, right? So there's, I get to exist and I get to belong are basically the two categories that get served with the perfection. And then there are lots of branches out from there. And of course, the irony is, as long it's like the asymptotic curve, it approaches zero but never gets there. The more we work it, the more we reinforce it's not there yet. So in that scheme, there's actually never any getting there. There's only proving again and again that we need to keep working on it. We don't actually yet have the right to exist. People don't actually like us just yet. We need to go one more round.
We always have hope, though. That's the thing is it always gives you hope of having it without actually having to tally the score quite yet.
Oh, that's good.
So that's the thing that keeps it so addictive to people is that right. Hope and a bit of the fear that if we tally the score, because perfectionism is so difficult to achieve. Perfectionism is one of those things that's it's a really great goal to set up there as long as you understand that it's not actually an achievable goal.
Well, it's perfection, right? Like, so when you say perfectionism, yes. To me, I hear perfectionism, and really at the end of the day, and I didn't say this, I think it's a Brene Brown quote, but perfectionism is just fear dressed up in a mink coat and Jimmy Choos, right? Like, perfectionism is a form of fear, where we're trying to feel safe and we don't, we're trying to belong and we don't feel like we do, right? So we're trying to do and do and do and fix and fix and fix in order to have that, the calm, the okayness, the feeling of satisfaction. The perfection is the place you're talking about that we keep sort of like driving towards.
Yeah, it's much easier on one system if your goal is a level of excellence versus a level of perfection.
Exactly. And that's something that I train on all the time. In fact, I have a webinar. I don't know when we're going to actually be airing this, but there's a webinar I do called Take Back Your Time, how to get the hard stuff done without lowering your standards or losing your mind. And the lowering your standards is like just a beeline to the perfectionist brain, because we're so afraid to lower our standards. We're so afraid that if we stop at that 80% or that 90%, even if it's good enough for everyone else, it's not good enough for me, right? And so the relief of like, I don't have to lower my standards. I can strive for excellence. I can have it be as good as I want it to be, and to start to tease apart the fibers of what is that versus the compulsive drive to keep fixing.
Yeah.
Right.
So we titled this conversation, Bringing Awareness and Compassion to Perfectionism. And Deborah, maybe you can start us off, and then Carla, please join in, which is, where the compassion come, because that's a hard thing for those struggling with perfectionism. It's not really, I'm sure it's there in there somewhere, but it's not the first tool we go to.
Yeah. Well, NLP was enormously instrumental for me on this one because, as an artist, I've learned and worked in the language of inner child and inner child work and spiritual work for a long time, but it never landed in quite the way that would generate compassion on the order of what you're talking about here until I really had it as there's a me in there who is very young, totally defenseless and innocent, and really just trying to like feel okay. And I'm turning that stream of consciousness into a judgy, bitchy monster who's running my life. You know, and NLP really helped me and continues to help me bring. So, okay, so in the world of perfectionism, where we believe like I'm just 100% the adult running the show, you know, my brain is online with whatever it's got online, and I just have these thoughts, and my thoughts are, that's not good enough, that needs to be better. My thoughts are, that person is blah, 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 right? Like I'm judging and I'm criticizing and I'm complaining and I'm upset about everything and it's making me stressed out and I want to control it. Or I'm a people pleaser, I need everybody else to be happy. There are lots of realms of perfectionism that I work with. And previous to having some sort of sense of that younger self, I would think that the judging had to do with a level of standard, right? A standard of excellence. I need it to be like this. I think way back in the day, LiYana, before we even worked together, I think I emailed you about your punctuation at one point or something that I'm horribly chagrined to even confess now, but I'm doing it because I know there are people out there doing it who want to know that that happens, right? And it's just all these protective layers. The judgment is a form of separation, so that I can be safe, better than you, and therefore safe. I know something that you don't. I am right in a way that you're wrong. And so I'm separate, I'm safe, I'm protected. And when you go a couple levels deeper on that judgment, that separation, there's actually a very frightened, very sad, very lonely, very upset little one who doesn't understand what's happening or why, just knows, in my case, she's cold and alone. And she's like 2 days old, right? Or 2 years old, or 5 years old, or whatever it is. And there are all these ways that we learn, that we create decisions in the moment and learn over time to make sense of what doesn't make sense by saying, okay, I'm the problem. Everybody else out there is fine. I'm the problem. I will fix me, and I will make sure that that never happens again. And so those layers of fixing and making sure everything is okay forever get compounded into all the ways that I'm wrong, and then all the ways that you're wrong. Any sort of judgmental voice, and this is a big piece of bringing compassion to the perfectionism, any judgmental voice that you have for someone else, rest assured, there's a voice that you're bringing to yourself with that same harshness, or probably even more so, that same vitriol, that same anxiety, that same relentless intrusion is always going to be, there's always going to be a counterpart to anything that you're experiencing consciously as being directed towards someone else, that's directed towards yourself. And so when we can, and of course, we're not doing a big giant NLP session right here, but broadly put, how I learned to bring compassion to my perfectionism was as a result of having that work and understanding those younger parts of me that truly it was not their job to get it right. Like truly it was not their job to figure anything out. Truly there was nothing to fix. And that to just like love that little one, like you're like, oh, cute baby, cute teddy bear, cute baby lamb, like whatever, like that's, you know, there's just sort of a human tenderness that goes there. And that's where the compassion is. And then to recognize that everything else that doesn't bring compassion, that brings like judgment or fear or anger, is just layers on top of that were built up to protect that.
Beautifully said. Yeah. Would you add to that, Carla?
Yeah. What I would add to it is that some of the presuppositions within NLP set up a landscape that allows for compassion without a ton of effort on your part. It takes a while to kind of get the hang of some of the presuppositions, but that everyone is always doing the best they have with what they've got. And that includes every aspect of us. When you start to pay attention and be able to feel how we're always doing the best we've got, we're making the best choice. We'll say making the best feeling option, the choice that feels the best on our life's menu at the moment. And the menu changes by moment to moment. Sometimes things are grayed out. Sometimes things are there. Sometimes once you've made the choice, there's now something more available. When you start with presupposing that, and then you begin to hold people that way, and you begin to understand that there's lots and lots of pockets of criteria within somebody. Oftentimes those criteria are at conflict. I want to snuggle down into bed and hit the snooze button. I want to go for a run are two very different criteria. And they are in conflict at that
Especially
moment.
in January.
Yes, especially in January when it's cold out. Or July when it's already hot out and the day hasn't even started. You know, it depends on where you live. But when you start to understand that we're always working towards something positive, even when the behavior seems really negative,
yeah.
Then you start looking for what's really going on in here. And perfectionism is just one of the ways that somebody might drive themselves. And it might be, and the ways that we often judge ourselves. We judge what we don't understand in ourselves. And we judge what we haven't taken time to listen to and to understand what could possibly be the positive. And sometimes it takes a lot of courage, and a lot of times it takes somebody else sitting with us in order for us to slow down enough to be able to inquire about what it is, what's the positive that's wanted here, even though we hate the behavior or we hate the experience that we're having. But after doing this work for so long, it's very hard for me to approach anybody with a sense of anything but compassion. And compassion works best when it is paired with curiosity. Compassion alone is a lot of work. It is an effort. And it doesn't always feel right. And it's sometimes kind of annoying to try and be compassionate when you're, because you're not curious.
Carla's taking us to school right now. I'm like, clearly I haven't quite cleared all of my judgment issues yet.
So if you're not also curious, it's hard to stay compassionate.
Right.
And it is the thing that we often drop as curiosity. When we are insecure, we drop curiosity and we go into kind of a judgmental sureness. It's good. It takes a while to get enough rapport with yourself to be curious in areas where there's maybe some sort of preset, like I really already should know this, but to actually just be curious, it's like being willing to not, and we stress this as a part of our training, is learning how to go longer and longer periods of time without knowing. And it's a muscle you've got to work up, because we feel safest when we know. But this world is a complete mystery. I mean, just even the way we work on the inside is a complete mystery. There's a lot of it we're never going to figure out. And becoming comfortable with that mystery, becoming comfortable with the unknown, and staying curious, because even though there's a lot we're not ever going to know, there is a lot that we can know and we can understand. So it's a lot easier to be compassionate when you're curious, when you stay curious, and when you're kind of wondering what's got to be going on for this to be happening, as opposed to, well, if they just did this, it would work better. Or if I just did this, it would be better. Or if I just, right. Again, anytime you're pushing, you're overcoming.
Carla, I love that grayed out menu. I had not heard you say that before. The idea of these items on the menu are grayed out. That brings such great focus to the whole like judging versus curiosity and compassion piece, because so much of the time, I know I've experienced this personally in my own life and relationships, and I watch my clients experience it all the time. So much of the time it's like, exactly what you just said. Why don't you just do this thing over there? But if you can see that the menu is grayed out and they can't select it, and maybe even they can see it and they can't, like, it's super frustrating. We've all been there using tech where it's like the menu option we need is grayed out, right? And so the idea.
And how many times do you hit the mouse button anyways, even on the grayed out, and like swear, right? Yeah. So so when we talk about something being available on our life's menu, there is cognitively available. In other words, I know that in this situation, if I just did this, things would go better. And we have a lot of stuff like that. but that doesn't mean it's available. It's not necessarily available to select. It's just conceptually available. And a lot of self-help gives us a lot of grayed out stuff to put on our life's menu, which for the most part is, it can, and occasionally if it stays grayed out long enough, it'll turn to black, right? And then it's available. But a lot of it stays grayed out. And then we, again, lose compassion for ourselves because we can see it's on the menu, but we're not selecting it. And noticing that things are, there's a lot of things that we know what to do in a situation and we still can't do it. So underneath that is the programming. And that's where the NLP comes in, is the stuff that is like, we know what to do, but we're not doing it.
Yeah.
If we can't do it, then there's something in our programming that's more important that keeps overriding that option.
Yep.
And then I get curious about what that is. Sometimes it's what things are set to different levels of importance. And we can, like in NLP, we can go in and we can shift all that programming and that code. But the code, you just know that the code is currently written in such a way that these things are not available yet.
Yeah.
And that also gives you compassion. If you notice all the things that you think you should be doing, all the things on the list that you know you should be doing, and if you've 10 friends have told you and one coach and you're still not doing it, something's going on in the programming that leaves that not available.
Yeah.
And the programming was written for a different criteria, but it's got precedence right now. And so it's not going to move by beating yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to move by actually with willpower, you can probably get it to move once. And then you'll go back to the old way.
Right.
Everybody who's tried a new exercise routine already for the year and given up.
Right.
This is clearly an indication of that, right?
This is the whole procrastination game, right? It's like, I want to do the thing. I know I'll feel better once I do the thing. I've got big goals wrapped up in doing the thing, and I'm not doing the thing. Why do I keep not doing the thing? And we just keep telling ourselves, well, because it's hard, and I'm too busy. I need more time to, but it's that, like you said, there's something in the moment that it's time to go do the thing, right? Clean up the kitchen, work out, whatever it is. Something comes in to say, don't do that. That's not safe. That's not going to work out well. That could get you killed, right? Like that sort of thing. Or
there's something more important.
There's something more important. That's a great point also. Something more important.
There's a line that someone gave me years ago that I think is really useful to put in here with perfectionism, which is that human beings are not lazy.
Nice.
And you have proof of this in any natural disaster. Where everybody just shows up and helps out however they can, and they'll work themselves, right? We see lots of counterexamples in life where if human beings were lazy, these things wouldn't be getting done. Where we label ourselves lazy, we are hopeless.
Wow.
So what you are labeling as lazy is a place where you're hopeless. A child who's not cleaning their room is not being lazy. They're pretty much hopeless about how to clean it. It means they don't have a proper strategy for cleaning it. They don't have a sense of knowing when it's clean enough. They don't have, they are missing something. Kids who clean their rooms usually have a really good strategy for cleaning their rooms, and they have the space to put their things away, and they have the time to do it. So a child who's supposed to make their bed every morning but can never make the bed to mom's specifications starts to feel really hopeless and then just won't make their bed. A child who needs to make their bed can make it to specifications but never has enough time before school will stop making their bed. There's something in the system that makes them hopeless. And so if you extrapolate that out to your life and notice where you're labeling yourself as lazy and not meeting perfection, it's like, what is it you're hopeless about?
So interesting. So I know LiYana wants to jump in, but now I have this question of like, okay, so if in the case of my life, which you know well, Carla, I would make the bed. I would do everything I could to make it to mom's specifications. It would always never be up to specification in some way. There would always be something wrong. I never stopped making the bed or whatever metaphorical equivalent there was, right? So I was always making the bed, always trying to get mom's approval, never got it, never stopped making the bed. So that to me is sort of like, boom, that's the thumbnail of a driven perfectionist, right? Like I'm always hustling. I'm always trying to earn the approval that I never get.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I ever think of myself as lazy exactly. It's almost like I aspire to earn lazy. Right. But in that case, maybe lazy is less of a character trait and more of just taking a rest.
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting that you probably have in there that resting ever is something that then should be labeled as lazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus resting being a necessary part of life.
Yeah.
And part of the, it's that the whole go slow to go fast idea is like, if you actually give yourself proper rest, if you give yourself proper breaks, you're more efficient. And if you have proper breaks and proper rest labeled as lazy.
Yeah, no, that has definitely been a growth edge for me over time. And I'm happy to say that I have definitely achieved some measure of rest guilt-free. But yeah, that's a huge growth edge for driven hustler type A perfectionist like me.
Yeah. And in your case, Deborah, when you're talking about being driven, it's almost like you need a little bit of hopelessness dropped into the system. Like you need to be able to identify what truly is hopeless.
Like going without sleep, for example.
Well, achieving perfection is not really like, what do you do after you achieve perfection? That's the other question. What do you do after you achieve perfection? Then what?
My workaround for that is, and it's on my website like a big banner, we are perfect when we are present. Okay. And that's ultimately what it comes down to.
And then there's certain rewards in life that are never going to happen.
Like
getting it good enough for certain special people in our lives.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Right. And so it's useful to be hopeless about that.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm.
Right. Hopeless is not a bad state. It's just, it needs to be properly applied.
Sometimes it's about like an accurate assessment, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. When something is hopeless, then it's like, okay, so that's not going to be worth shooting for, but how do I like my bedroom?
Nice.
How do I want do I want my bed made? Do I want my bed turned down? Do I want just a big pile of pillows to fall into at night? What do I want?
So lovely. And then somewhat less lovely and pleasurable and comfortable, but a really important sideline that, again, I'm always in the growth edge of this myself, is to feel the feelings associated with the hopelessness. Like I'm never going to get that approval or that love or that whatever it is from that person. That accurate assessment of that situation as hopeless has me feeling XYZ. And so much of the time, our procrastination, our perfectionism, our drive to keep fixing is a way of avoiding actually being present to that depth of heartbreak. We call it flapping in NLP Marin, right? Flapping to avoid actually having the crash of this hurts, this sucks, and there's no fix for it. But then in the wake of that, your beautiful question, how do I want my room, actually becomes a question we can answer.
Well, and just because something is hopeless in one area, I mean, in a certain way that just frees your attention for putting it towards something else, but also to notice that all of that is survivable, that we spend a lot of energy trying to avoid something that sometimes, like just getting through it, like having a lousy half hour frees up 20 hours in the next month.
Yeah,
like this, like that little heartbreak, and it's not little, but that heartbreak might pay off. It's always useful to notice how much energy we're putting into avoiding something that like we're always looking for a way for things to feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if we're looking just at the right now, we can't find an okay. I got to have a difficult conversation, and I'm avoiding the conversation because it's not going to feel okay. But how am I going to feel at the end of the day when I'm getting in bed if I've had the conversation? It might be worth a little stress just to get through it. And procrastination is often about paying attention to the wrong time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And as LiYana has said many times, the circuitry, and Jill Bolte Taylor and her whole brand Living and so much good stuff there, talking about the circuitry, the actual biology and physiology of the emotions, of this stuff that doesn't feel good that we're trying to avoid. If we actually allow ourselves to feel it, takes somewhere between 90 seconds and 6 minutes to run through our system. I remember, LiYana, you told an amazing story about having a conversation that just filled you with all sorts of feelings you didn't want to feel, and abject terror and all sorts of trauma responses, and you flung yourself on a bed and let yourself feel it, and you're like, 6 minutes later I was okay. With that information was life-changing for me, and really, really helpful.
Yeah, beautiful. So for the sake of time, I wish I could bend time a little bit right now.
Useful to feel hopeless there.
I do.
Useful to be hopeless there.
I do. Thank you for that. Let's do 2 last little questions. They're lightning rounds. Deborah, is there anything you want to say to Carla, to Carl, to NLP Marin, to transformational NLP?
Oh my gosh.
Can she swear?
Say again?
Can she swear?
Can I do?
I think editing out the swear words is going to be a nightmare, so I think we just got to go for it.
Dude, I just went to
a warning.
Totally PG place with my language. I did not drop any F-bombs after that first one.
I know you did. Yes. I'm just
pure and clean
you
here.
Gave me an opportunity to say something to me, and that was when I said, "Can she swear?" Right? Okay.
Hilarious. Yeah, it was. There have been so many revelations along the way, really. And we've covered some of them in terms of things like compassion, which I just kind of had none of when I came into the whole game, or didn't have the experience of anyway. Just the idea, we're always choosing the best available options on our menu. I love the thing I got today now with the grayed out option. That's really like a nice new nuance to it. That there was just really wave after wave of relief and appreciation in the work with NLP Marin. And for my particular torture-driven soul, my particular ways of, like, well, we all have torture-driven souls in some way, shape, or form, yeah. Right? But for my particular brand of drive and hustle, my particular brand of burnout and exhaustion that I came in with, and my particular brand of pleasure and joy, right? Like, I'm actually a very happy, energetic person. And as Carla has noted, right, you love this, you love to do this, you love to play, you love to make money, you like she's pointed out, like, stop trying to stop yourself from doing that. You love that too much. You like these sorts of things, where I had, there was again and again the space for me to step in with the whole mess, warts and all, whatever was going on, have there be the relief of, I get to be here just like this, and I get to even identify what I want, just me, much less claim it, much less create it, much less own it, and then like give that to other people. What? Right? So at each level, there's been this, like I said, relief and appreciation that opens up so much space for choice, and opens up so much space for the experiences I want, which are ultimately always about love and belonging, always about creation and innovation. Peak experience girl. I don't remember which one of you called me that, but it's 100% true. And it's good, smart work. Like, Carla and Carl are so freaking smart, and it is brainy, geeky, adorably cerebral, smart work that's also very woo and spiritual and compassionate and going into quantum realms and doing all that, yogini at the top of a mountain stuff that you would not normally expect to see in tandem with brain science, but there it is. And I really appreciate that. That's very compatible with my brain and the kind of work I like to do. I have absolutely loved being a student of this curriculum. I am not done being a student of this curriculum. And it's made all the difference in the world for me to be a colleague, student, and friend of all you guys.
Beautiful.
That's great, Deborah.
Okay,
I like
last
that.
question.
Waves and waves of relief, that is probably the thing that I love the most, is whenever we hit something and somebody just gets a wave of relief, because the relief is, and the thing that frames all of this, and Carl says this a lot, is being human is not a fallen condition. And the relief that one feels when they're like, oh, this thing that I have thought was something going wrong inside is actually going right, and there's a slight redirect I maybe want to do with it, but like, I'm okay. And I'm okay doesn't mean we ignore that there's pain, but it's really different to be in pain and things can be changed versus being in pain and feeling broken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no one's broken. But sometimes things need a little bit of reorganizing in order for them to work a little bit better. Yeah.
So last question for both of you. So if our audience left this conversation knowing one thing about transformation or change, what would it be?
Okay, Carla's going first on this one.
We've been kind of doing it through this whole time, which is that there's a lot of laughter in there, that it even when it's like tough, there's a lot of enjoyment and laughter, and there's a lot of fun in transforming. It's not like being on your hands and knees wailing all the time to get somewhere. Like, that gets boring after a while. It's exhausting and boring, and that's like not what we're about. And there are moments of that, but that transformation is something that's fun, that's available to anyone, and isn't, gut-wrenching awful.
I love that. True. Lots of fun and laughter at NLP Marin, lots of laughing at ourselves, lots of not taking ourselves too seriously. I actually got mad at you, Carla, the first couple of times you did that with me. I was like, this is very serious and very upsetting and very painful. Why are you laughing? And it wasn't until like years later, really, that when something clicked into place. Many iterations in, I had seen you laugh many times. I had, watched you work and been working with you many times. But then suddenly at one moment when you laughed at something that was super painful, and the whole room laughed, like we were in that space of like, we're laughing at the human condition, which, as you so beautifully said, is not a fallen condition. And it clicked for me, where I had just been taking myself so seriously. I was so wrapped up in my pain and the seriousness of this, and I had associated your levity with, I don't matter. And the thing that's really beautiful about NLP Marin, and this was a really great breakthrough for my perfectionism too, is like, it's not the stuff that makes me matter. It's not the circumstance that makes me matter. It's not the dynamic or the condition that makes me matter. I just matter. And you hold that space for everyone. That's the space inside which transformation happens. And you can be laughing your ass off the whole time. So that's to second your point. The thing
we're not ever really laughing at anyone.
Right, exactly. Which I didn't really understand at the beginning. but the thing I will say is this: transformation only and always happens in this moment. It's always now. And one of the things that is one of my privileges and biggest missions in what I'm doing now as a coach, and what I'm able to do so much more effectively with NLP work, transformational NLP, is to bring people into the present now, where it really all happens, where it's always happened, and where it will always happen in now. And it's such a mind-blowing concept and experience to actually have and operate within and from I only access it on occasion myself, but that kind of like bringing together of the quantum and the linear and all the different selves and parts, all the ways that we're human, that clarity on transformation happening now has been so important and so useful, and then translates, of course, into helping coach people with procrastination and all the rest of the things of like, life is going to happen later. No, life is happening now. It's only and always now. And thank you for that.
Thank you both. This is so, he was like, wow, we're going deep several times. So thank you both for being able to take us there and go there and articulate so much. Appreciate you so much. And thank you all who are listening and watching, and we'll see you in the next conversation.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deborah.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, LiYana.